Jessica's got a new mic, everybody.
I'm very proud of it.
Welcome back to the BookEnds YouTube channel. I'm James McGowan
Hi, I'm Jessica Faust with a new microphone.
with a new microphone. We are literary agents who have taken our popular blog to YouTube to discuss all things publishing. And today we're talking about the evergreen topic of comp titles,
Yep.
specifically how to choose comp titles. So if you're not familiar, comp titles, some people say it stands for comparison titles. Some people say it stands for competitive titles. I think it matters whether you're writing fiction or nonfiction.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could probably say it's a little of both,
Probably,
right?
yeah.
I mean, your comparable titles or your comparison titles are also those that are likely to be your competition. They're the ones that the same readers are going to be going to buy those books. I think that's probably the best way to think about it. And so they are a little of both.
Yeah, for sure. So what are they used for, Jessica? I'm gonna ask you.
I mean, I think at a very basic level, a comp title gives an instant impression of what the book is, who the audience is, and for me as a reader, whether or not it's something I'm going to like. So if you comp your book, and it's truthful, to a book that I absolutely love, then I think, well, I might really like this book because it's compared to this. Um, so I think at the very basic, it's that, but it also gives you an idea of what to expect in the book in terms of, I think, a number of things, but in terms of genre, tone. I think it's more about the feeling you're going to get in a comp title and less about exact precise storyline. So if you're writing a book about, I don't know, a domestic suspense featuring a husband and wife, there's a million of them out there, and you can comp the top ones because there's a lot of husband and wife domestic suspense. But if yours is funny, and more horror like, then Grady Hendrix would make sense. But if yours is more of a straight suspense, then maybe Gone Girl would be a better example. So those give me two very different ideas of what the tone and style of your book is.
Yeah, and they can also be good for helping you show that there's a market for your book too. And I think particularly in nonfiction, they're helpful for doing that. But if you comp a book to several recently published books, it's like, this is fitting with a trend or something that's been working particularly well recently. So they are important for so many different reasons. And I think when you're coming up with them, the most important thing that you can do is make sure that they're accurate, but that they're also being strategic for you and showing that part of the market or hooking to something that maybe the agent said that they liked in their MSWL. I think that they are a tool in your query letter to grab attention, really.
And I also think they have a lot of value for you as the writer. If you know what your comp titles are, you know what the expectations are of readers, because I'm going to assume you've read at least some of the comp titles. Maybe not all of them, but some of them.
I
So
hope.
yeah. So if you're comping your book to a suspense, what readers expect of that genre of book. I also think it can be really valuable in creating your pitch, your blurb for your query letter, right? If you know what your comp titles are, you can go to that cover copy as an example of what the pitch could look like for your book. If you comp the books and you know them, I think you can also know where your book might feel a little too familiar, which is a common, I think, phrase agents use, and editors certainly use it when passing on the book. In other words, does it sound too much like these other three books? Is it not different enough? And that's a big conversation we have in nonfiction, and one, frankly, we should probably be having in fiction more
Yeah,
often.
for sure.
That you want your book to appeal to a similar audience, but you don't want it to sound like, or to actually be in the writing, a redux. Is that the right word? Of those books. You want it to be fresh and new, even to those you're comping.
Yeah, and I think a big mistake that authors make is they pick those juggernaut titles, right? They pick the Gone Girls, or they
Harry
pick,
Potter.
Harry Potter. That's a very common one. Or they pick Stephen King. They pick a lot of those juggernaut books that are huge bestsellers, talked about all over the place, just because they're huge bestsellers talked about all over the place, not because that they are actually comparative to what they've written. And I
Yeah.
think that it does sort of harm you in a way because
Mm.
it shows like, ah, okay, you're just writing to chase that trend instead of writing or giving me a comp title that is specific to your book and can give a good impression of what it is that you've written.
I would say a good rule of thumb is if everybody and their mother has heard of the book, including those people who do not read, don't comp it. It's gone beyond the potential of a straight up comp title. It is sort of entered a stratosphere of its own. Stephen King is not a horror writer. Stephen King is Stephen King. That's it. That's end of story. So to use Stephen King as a comp, when even people who don't read know who he is hard to identify what the actual market is looking for these days.
Though I will say, I think getting specific can be helpful. So if there was something about Stephen King, like if there's something about Misery that you really wanted to comp, like, this sort of held captive, if you can get specific and you can really tell me what it is that you're comping about, I would say do it. Like, you can do the magical school of whatever, right? Meets this. If you can do something like that and get specific and really explain why you're doing your comp title, I wouldn't be totally opposed to it. But I think if you can get more current and more within the last 3 years and you can still do a comp, that's what I would go for. And if you do use one of those juggernauts, then also do something I think that is more current.
I just heard a Stephen King comp that I think backs up what you're saying really well. The TV show Wednesday, which I adore, um, the dance episode, I don't think it was called a prom, but the dance episode was comped to Carrie.
Gary.
And I thought that was brilliant, but also keep in mind that you're crossing age groups because Carrie was not written for the
Right.
same audience that Wednesday was. And I think that makes it a little bit more appealing too, because you're taking something that's typically thought of as an adult story. And I think the same could hold true, if you I think another big one is well, like if Buffy the Vampire Slayer was comped as an adult book, there's an appeal there that we're not seeing a lot of those YA tropes in adult, and that might be appealing.
Yeah, for sure. And I think I think your comp titles can sort of betray you in a way too, right? Like if you're
Right.
wildly off, to me it shows like maybe you don't have a good sense of the market that you're writing for. Maybe you don't have a good sense of your book. That's why we always say try and be as accurate as you can because they do sort of say something beyond the book, I think.
I think a really good example of that is the age of the comps.
Yeah.
We get a lot of, and I've actually had people say straight out, well, I don't read anything that's published now. I stick
Oh,
to,
that's my least favorite line.
right, right. Well, that's great. But I'm only selling books that are publishing now. I am not selling books that were published 10 years ago or authors. So if you're comping a book or an author, and I really want to stress that I also mean author. Harlan Coben is a big one. Harlan Coben was first published, I don't even know how many years and books
Yeah.
ago. So Harlan Coben is no longer being bought and published because of his fresh ideas. He's being bought and published because he's Harlan Coben. So to comp to his books may not sell if he was a debut author today, because that's not why people are buying them anymore. So I think it's really important to know today's market, what's coming out today, what's fresh, because that is what we're looking to buy and sell today. That's what editors are looking for. And again, it kind of goes back to my usage of the word familiar. Another Harlan Coben book sounds familiar to us. It sounds like something we have seen a million times before in some.
And that's why a lot of people are returning to his books, right? Because it is familiar. They do love them and they want
Right.
more of it.
But they don't necessarily want a brand new debut author who's writing something similar because they've already found their love.
They could just go to Harlan Coben for that.
Right.
Yeah, so we have a little guide for creating your comp title. So one of the things that you can do, and encompassing all of our tips today, is it mixes the blank of comp title with the blank of comp title. I think that's a really good way
Mhm.
to start and try it out. I mean, what we're looking when I think of comp titles, I go for vibe, right? Like that vibe you get while you're reading, and that's really hard to pin down. But using that method, getting specific and getting granular, can really help you find the best comp titles for your book. And that can be, it mixes the tone, it could be the twisty and turns, it could be the vibes. It could be a specific type of character. It could be a specific type of narrative structure, mixed media, anything like that. There are so many different things you can fill in those blanks, but it's a good way to get started and to help you come up with your little formula for pitching your book and get you to that like quick elevator pitch, identifying your hook that can then help you center your query around.
Yeah, let me give you an example based on a recent pitch I just got that might be good. It's the 80s nostalgia of Stranger Things with the edge of Grady Hendrix. Like that would be two comps that I think are like, you instantly are like, I get what that book is going to be.
Do. Side note, I once said that I don't look for nostalgia for like nostalgia because I wasn't alive in a video. And I got a lot of comments that were like, what are you talking about? So every time we talk about nostalgia of Stranger Things, I think of that.
Funny. Well, I always say I don't read historical, but yet Lessons in Chemistry I absolutely adored, and it was set in like the 50s, 60s, which I have a hard, I sort of consider anything in like the 20th century, whatever, near historical, but so I have a hard time when I'm like, I don't want anything historical, but then I would totally take that book. So
And that's why comp titles can help, right? Like if someone's writing something historical, they can say the historical but contemporary vibe of Lessons in Chemistry.
I mean, we do it all the time in our MSWLs. I use comp titles. I use like, I just read this book, I would love another book like this.
And that's a
Another
great
book.
way to help understand them. Read Agents MSWL.
That's true. That's true.
Okay, I think that's everything. I hope it's helpful. I know we've talked about comp titles a lot, but this is just a refresher, bringing everything into one spot. So if you have any questions about them, put it in the comments below. We'll be happy to answer. And don't forget to like and subscribe so you can see us back here next week for our next video.
Good luck.